YouTube. Good night and welcome to Mindful Live 146. I am your host, Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. Tonight we're talking crime. Yes, as it seems like very regularly we talk about over in Trinidad and Tobago, and also not only crime. We're joining that to the reality of the lack of maintenance in Trinidad and Tobago, and even as it relates to crime. Wow, Rooney, wow. So even as it relates to crime fighting measures, and that lack of maintenance in this country seems to seep its way even into how we fight crime and the problems we have in fighting crime. So as usual, I'm streaming here live over on TikTok, on Instagram, and on YouTube. Wherever you are streaming this, wherever you are looking at this, please do hit that like button. It does help all through. Keep hitting it. Whenever you remember, just like, oh yes, hit that like button. Over on TikTok, you double tap that screen, find that like button over there on Instagram, and also on YouTube. Whether you're looking at this on repeat or live, hit that like button. It really does help with the algorithm sending it out there. Clyde says, Nathan, we're a society that doesn't encourage productivity, hence crime will always be an issue. True. The lack of productivity helps crime. You know, I was thinking about this recently, and the presence of weed and the internet is incapacitating an entire generation in Trinidad and Tobago, especially young men. The driving force of a nation's productivity, that young male age group, so many of them are just wasting their entire day. And you know, it's not like necessarily I'm saying the herb is an evil thing all on its own, but I've heard someone say it this way: one thing that it helps you do is it makes boredom feel good. And you have a whole generation of young guys, fellas, youth men, just sitting, being bored whole day and feeling fine about being bored. So I know that's your point. I'm agreeing with your point. I understand that, and that's a culture in Trinidad, and I think that's a horrible thing to let set into the young men in Trinidad. So many young men that are fine with just chilling the whole day away. That's not good. That takes away from the productivity of the country on a whole. It takes away from what the country might be capable of doing on the wider scale. So yeah, I agree with that. A partial reason for the amount of crime is the nature of our culture, in that lack of productivity, lack of interest in being productive. And yes, but I'm talking even on the systemic side, beside just the cultural side there, on the systemic side, and the problems that we see are rooted in systemic issues that make it much more difficult to get rid of some of these issues. All right. We're going to dive into that story there. So as I said, hit that like button. If you are also interested in the Mindful Pod Learning, the Learning Pods, head over to Mindful Education and follow us over there on Instagram if you are interested in such. Pod Learning, which is homeschool style classes, very small classes, around 6 students, specialized teaching in that homeschool style of a syllabus, same lining up also with the general schooling, but more specifically on that side, where they get that familiarity with both their teachers and their fellow students in that specific pod. If you are interested in such, and they are in-person classes, yes, not online classes, in person. If you are interested, head over, as I said, to Mindful Education over there on Instagram. So yes, let's dive into that story and see what the Prime Minister had to say about the crime situation. The killers are out there. At PNM meeting, PM talks crime, CCTV tax break, murder toll, gun licenses, a wide-ranging group of topics. As Trinidad and Tobago continues to be besieged by criminals, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley announced that citizens will get a 12-month tax break for the purchase of CCTV cameras. Now, that's great, but I believe there was a tax break already given for that. But there was a bit of a technicality. There's an article out there from a letter to the editor to the editor, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley announced at a political meeting that 80 million will be going towards CCTV cameras for the TTPS for surveillance on the roads, as well as the usual talk of security CCTV purchases being tax-free. I would like the Honorable PM to know security camera systems are only tax-free if an entire CCTV system is imported in a box, complete. So this means the cameras, the recording and device and monitor must be in the same box from the manufacturer. This is never the case since a monitor is never supplied with a good CCTV system. This is according to the current wording in the Customs Tax Guidebook. So they're offering you a tax-free CCTV system, and you go out there and buy that, not understanding that they're talking technically of an entire system with a monitor included, and you bring it in, man. Run up in customs there, and as the writer says, many have been rudely surprised by this when they bring in a home CCTV system, and the customs officers make no bones about this when calculating their charges. So yeah, with that tax-free business, make sure you read the fine print also. But yes, the Prime Minister was talking about making the importation or bringing in these CCTV camera systems, making it tax-free, so the commercial and residential people could all get surveillance up there. Now, surveillance is not a bad thing. Surveillance does have a bit of a deterrence effect, correct? But if you have poor law enforcement, surveillance does not matter, you know. Like, okay, you got to see the guy that robbed you. Congratulations. Now what? Like, okay, yes, you saw him. Now what? The police actually have to do something to catch these people. And in Trinidad and Tobago, right now, they have lots of CCTV cameras all around the place. How often when a crime is committed 2-3 days after, sometimes the same evening, you go up on some one of these crime pages, some one of these news pages, and you see video footage of the crime that happened. I remember talking about one and we see you, okay. And I remember looking and talking about one in the Eastern Arima where the guys came to do a shooting. They did the shooting, I think someone died regrettably. And they tried to jump in the vehicle. The vehicle stalled and they jogged out the road. All of this was on camera and pretty good quality too. So yes, we have the cameras. Now what? Then what? Okay, yes, we get nice footage of the banditry. Yes, Alert Titi and News Before News and MYOB and Entertainment and all of those pages, they get lovely footage. They get lots of views. Grand. Then what? What's the next step? How would CCTV footage, CCTV cameras really help if the law enforcement isn't enforcing the law? If they cannot catch the people after you have them on camera? You're just going to be filling up all your drives with lots of data on the bandits and how they look, with nothing else if there isn't some other step than this. Anyway, the Prime Minister disclosed $80 million was spent to purchase 2,500 cameras, which are currently being installed at various locations, while another 2,500 will be purchased. This means 5,000 cameras will be operated and owned by the state and will aid in the crime fight, he added. Okay, now, I saw this had quite a bit of bacchanal recently, because when you do the maths, 80 million divided by 2,500, I believe works out to something like $32,000. And I saw someone say that $32,000, blessed night Levi Hussein, I saw someone mentioning that $32,000 is just a ridiculous amount to pay for a camera, and that could never be right. And the thing is, I don't think that's necessarily true. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think there are cameras that could cost that kind of money when you're talking about getting them installed. The problem is we need to see exactly what the quality of the cameras they purchased are. Until we see that, that would be the problem. We need to know what that quality will be. If it is something very sophisticated, where you're getting 4K 60 FPS recording out of these cameras, and you could get 5 times optical zoom and some digital zoom inside there, okay, grand, well then 32,000 may have been worth it. But until we know exactly what the quality is, just knowing it's 32,000 is a lot. It's a lot. That has to be some really high quality camera systems. But if they are high quality camera systems, that begs the question, will we maintain them? Because we already have camera systems in Trinidad and Tobago, but what's happening with them right now? I was reading a tragic article, really and truly. It follows a tragic story. Daughter of media photographer killed in hit and run, service or upgrade CCTV cameras. On July 9th, Sharice Harris and her family got the shocking news that her father, Anthony Harris, 60, had been knocked down while cycling around the Queen's Park Savannah, Port of Spain. One day later, there was even more tragedy as he succumbed to his injuries. The driver of the vehicle that hit Harris never stopped. In the aftermath of the incident near President's house, thank you, Hadi, much appreciated. In the aftermath of the incident near President's house, Acting Police Commissioner McDonald Jacobs said the CCTV cameras located in the area where Harris was hit were said to be not useful because of the quality of the footage. So we have cameras up, and you're telling me the quality of the footage of those cameras can't tell you even the license plate of a hit and run incident? What kind of cameras did we put up there? And bear in mind, this is outside the president's house. If we were to expect anywhere in Trinidad to have, some of the best working national security measures, you would expect near the president's house, because the president's house, for those of us who are familiar with Trinidadian geography, the president's house is right next to the prime minister's residence too. That's a bit of the diplomatic center, I believe is the proper name for it. That's a kind of important area. And you're trying to tell me that area, the cameras in that area don't have enough quality to even tell a license plate in a hit and run incident? Who put up those cameras? And what was the cost of those cameras? Pray tell. Because I would like to know if those cameras cost 20,000, what would we expect from the $32,000 cameras? I would want to know what to expect. What's the life expectancy on these kinds of cameras? What's the life expectancy? How long is this supposed to last? How does the maintenance go? In April this year, National Security Minister Fitzgerald Hines said 1,796 CCTV cameras installed throughout. There are 1,796 CCTV cameras installed throughout TNT. 733 were not fully functional or are non-functional. That's nearly half. Nearly half of them are not fully functional or non-functional. Hines told the parliament that there were plans to install additional cameras, but was unable to say what dates the 733 would be fixed. So they have plans to install new ones, but they have no idea when the ones already installed would be fixed. What is that? And with the plans to install these new 5,000 cameras at 80 million for 2,500. So for the $5,000, if we were to guesstimate, that's what? 160 million for 5,000 cameras? Okay. If we were to spend that kind of money for those cameras, how long would we maintain them for? What's the life expectancy? Because, okay, we spent some money for these previous ones, and obviously they were not being maintained. Now, this pulled me back to a very interesting article I saw. The article is a lengthy interview with Mr. Austin Jack Warner himself. AZP News, a very interesting interview. And the part that is pertinent, at least that, is, let's go down there. He was asked about the state of the roads in the country. And we're starting from this to get to a point. The journalist asked Mr. Jack Warner about the state of the roads in the country. And Mr. Warner was saying he has pity on Rohanson, and because I know he means well. In fact, we talk from time to time, but until the government gets serious about funding and putting in quality control in the contractors who fix these roads, we are in trouble. Also, you have what we call preventative maintenance. You don't wait till a road collapses before you fix it. If you take a taxi or a car from here to Aruka to Matlat, you would see about 10 or 15 landslides that will happen in 6 to 10 months' time. Now, Mr. Jack Warner has a bit of managerial experience, but I don't think this is some kind of genius level figuring out from Mr. Warner. This is something that I always talk about. I live here in the Central District. I remember driving over a bridge for about 3, 4, 5 years, and the bridge is crumbling like a little at a time. In slow motion, this bridge is falling into the river. People are complaining constantly. It's a pretty important bridge. And you know, they waited till the entire bridge fell into the river and was impassable, and you had to close that road for a couple of weeks to come then and put a temporary Bailey bridge there. Yes, they come to put a temporary bridge in the meantime. Wow. And you wait till it fell to do that. And then you know very likely what's going to happen. That bridge is supposed to be temporary. Those Bailey bridges are supposed to be temporary. But very likely what's going to happen is they're going to leave that right there. And that's going to stay until the Bailey bridge loses its strength, it becomes a danger, and then you mash that whole thing down and build over something new. That's the way we function in this country. Maintenance, what is that? It's like no one in this country has any ability to see a couple days into the future. Like, okay, yes, you get this, but then you have to maintain it. Mr. Warner was asked, is it that we don't have a culture and history of maintenance in this country? And Mr. Warner said, I hasten to add, we don't. Look at our sports facilities. Panday built 4 stadia in 2001. 20 years later, look at them, fallen to pieces. Not one has a coat of paint. I mean elevators not functioning, doors lacking hinges, and so on. The government maintains nothing, and people argue with some justification, and the reason for that is when the thing collapses, then they have a contract to give to some friend of theirs to refurbish it, and that is, of course, their friends and their financiers, and so on, make money. But it's not fair for the country. Aisha Springer says, is there a link for the account on Instagram for Mindful Education? Not seeing it at all. It's Mindful with 2 L's. Mindful with 2 L's _ education. Mindful as in how I have it spelled here. Mindful with 2 L's education over there on Instagram. I don't have a link to it from my TikTok page. That might be something I could look into. But if you search for it on Instagram, it should be there. And I believe my main Instagram page would have a link to that. Only Trish says, what's the point of having a high awareness of all the drama in the country if we can't do anything? Well, awareness is the first step, wouldn't you think? If you're saying, well, you can't do anything if you're aware, then that would mean if you're not aware, your chances of doing something is even further out of reach. Like, I wouldn't understand that argument to me. I don't understand how, okay, if you're aware, it's very difficult to actually do anything. So you know what? Let's not be aware. That's like, you know, when people talk about to go down that, just a wild side road to go down there. You know, when people talk about getting tested for things like HIV, and people are like, nah, I'm not going to get tested. Like, if whether you get tested or not changes the fact of the matter. Like, okay, if you get tested and you are positive for a very serious illness, a very serious disease, then at least you could do something about it or try to. If you do not, well, for sure, you cannot do anything about it. So if you want the possibility of doing something, then it makes sense to at least be aware of it. It's a lazy attitude in that they don't want to see what needs to be done and do it. I think, yeah, that's a bit of it. Some people, the knowledge brings attention on you, because if tension, not attention. The knowledge brings tension to you. If you know something, then you feel pressure to try and do something differently. Now, as I regularly say about this, about what I'm doing and what I talk about, for the most part, what I'm talking about in terms of changing, I'm not even talking about joining a political party or something here. In terms of awareness, that allows for your own behavior. The assumption that you are able to control lots of things out there in the world is a wrong assumption. There aren't many things you have control over. What you do have control over is yourself. So if with the awareness, it allows you to change your own behavior to behavior that more accurately lines up with what is before you in reality, then wouldn't that make more sense? Mr. Warner, however, though, was saying that the maintenance issue in this country isn't something that is coincidental. This isn't a mistake. This isn't a bug. It's a feature. I don't know how many of you ever heard that statement. It's not a bug. It's a feature. You know, like if you have a program, if you have some kind of machine and something looks like a bug in it, like it's not supposed to happen. But no, this isn't a bug in this system. This is a feature. It's something done on purpose, according to Mr. Jack Warner. He's saying that the reason we don't do maintenance in this country is that if it falls apart, there's much more money in building over the entire thing. So it makes you wonder, even in the case of the CCTV cameras here, is it a case where people allow it to fall apart because now we have to spend $160 million to buy 5,000 more cameras, while we could have maintained all the cameras we have had so far, and then we're just adding on to what we already have. But like I'm thinking about this, and it actually makes sense in that realm. Maintenance contracts are much smaller. Those are contracts that don't go to the massive contractors. You aren't giving the biggest contractor something to just go and paint a little room somewhere, or just climb up and check the camera every so often. No, those are smaller contracts. If you leave the entire thing to fall apart, well, yes, those are the really big and juicy contracts. That's what Mr. Warner alleges. But it's not only the cameras that are going to be coming in. They also announced within that meeting that the Prime Minister had that they're going to also return to the joint police and military and army regiment officers, the joint patrols. And sorry, many of the business associations had some positive things to say about that. Bring on more boots, Sukai, not optimistic, little impact on crime. So the San Fernando Business Chamber, they had some positive things to say about that. There have been mixed responses from the business community to the implementation of increased as well as joint police and army patrols in communities as a measure to reduce crime. The measure took immediate effect following a meeting of the National Security Council on Monday, following a bloody weekend that saw the country's murder toll cross the 500 mark. Speaking with the Express yesterday, president of the Greater San Fernando Area Chamber of Commerce, Kiran Singh, said he was cautiously optimistic that the increased security presence would have a positive impact. Also, the Downtown Owners and Merchants Association, Gregory Aboud, said joint police and defense force patrols would serve to put the public more at ease. And yes, Nisi, look at that. They beat you to it tonight, Nisi, for sure. and I could understand, especially in areas like San Fernando and areas like Port of Spain, in areas that are more busy in concentrated spots. They have a clear downtown, they have a clear busy area. Patrols would obviously be better. It would obviously do a positive. I don't doubt that. The Shogunas Chamber, however, isn't as optimistic. President of the Shogunas Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Richie Sukai was less optimistic, however, noting that joint police and army patrols are nothing new and have had little impact on crime in the past. He said there's a need for a complete revamp of the TTPS, and he is speaking there about getting the actual leadership of the TTPS settled. You don't have an acting commissioner. Get this thing settled. Have a proper structure there at the top. And I agree with the man. These are temporary measures. Having a joint patrol is a temporary measure. And as he pointed out there, these were measures implemented before. The head of the South Chamber also pointed out this. Singh, however, hoped the measure continues long term. Whenever a new plan is announced from a crime perspective, it starts out very aggressive, but somehow it tends to die down in vitality over time. We sincerely hope that this momentum, which starts today, will continue not only to Christmas, but to Carnival and further on. And I understand what he is saying. And this actually seems like the same problem we have with the CCTV cameras. It seems like the same problem with the CCTV. Okay, we started with these joint army and police patrols Why haven't they continued? Why did they stop? Okay, we already bought CCTV systems. Okay, why aren't they all working? You see, it seems like lots of the problems that we are facing in this country aren't really a matter of just getting the equipment or getting the device or getting the ability. It's a matter of continuing, a matter of maintaining what we already have. And it seems like that's where we struggle for the most part. And if we have already seen that these areas we have done it before and we struggle to maintain it, what promises there for the government returning to it? Okay, we're going to buy more CCTV cameras. Are you going to maintain it this time? Okay, we're going to do joint army and police patrols. Is that going to continue? Is that going to be the new modus operandi? Is it going to be the new status quo that we can get accustomed to seeing the regiment with the police out there with boots on the ground for the next years to come? Or is this just something that's a flash in the pan? Okay, we have a spike in crime right now. The numbers are getting scary. We put on this plaster over the wound and we forget about that. And by next year, the joint patrols die down. Some of the CCTV cameras have already stopped working. And listen, criminals are not stupid people. Well, some of them might be, but all aren't just stupid people out there. If a criminal knows that the government will not maintain the CCTV systems, they'll just sabotage it. Obviously. And this, I'm not providing any grand ideas for anyone here. Obviously not leave the cameras, let them be. But I'm talking about someone who's a criminal anyway. They're a criminal. It's not like they're really worried about breaking the law here. That's what they do. So if they know you won't maintain it, then they know then all they have to do is take it down once. Chris 868, Nathan, good night. We on the inside, the Mindful Live. Yes, Chris 868, you're jumping the Mindful Live pretty late, bro. We've been living for a little while now. So yeah, it's the maintenance of these things. It's the maintenance that seems to be the major problem here. Rowley said criminals are killing people as a form of work, and he went on then to list the he went on then to list the amount of guns that the police have been taking off of the road in the last couple of years. Since 2018, for the last 60 months, some 3,888 firearms were seized. And even after that, we still have 500 murders in the last 10 months. What would have happened had the police not seized this quantity of arms and ammunition in the country? And I don't buy that. He is saying that because the police seized close to 4,000 firearms and now we have murders over 500, he's saying that if they didn't seize so many firearms, it would have been so much worse. And here's the thing, I don't actually think that's true. Like, let's get into science. You know, I'm a teacher. I like teaching. In physics, chemistry, for fire to happen, you need the three things. You need the spark, you need oxygen, and you need the fuel. That's the three things you need for fire to keep going, or for there to be a flame. And accountability from those who, right, yes, accountability is a very important part, even for maintenance too. But yeah, for fire to go, you need three things. If you are here taking out one wood out of the fire, ever so often, there's a forest fire going on, and you run in and pull one log out of the forest fire and get it out and throw it in the river. And then over the course of the next week while the forest fire is raging through, you take out a couple logs and it accumulates to actually 400 little brambles and logs you pulled out of the forest. You know, you stopped the fuel from the flame. You pulled out the fuel from the flame. And the fire is still burning down the whole forest. To boast about taking out a couple logs from that isn't really a boast. What is evident is that what you were taking out wasn't the limiting factor. Something I've noticed quite a while now in Trinidad and Tobago, when you look at the gun crime in Trinidad and Tobago, these guys evidently are not struggling to get ammunition. Getting bullets isn't a problem for them. It doesn't even seem like getting guns is a problem for them anymore. The guns that are seized might just be the old ones that they want to get rid of. I remember there was a time in Trinidad and Tobago, even in gang war, because gangs have been a part of Trinidad and Tobago for a little while now, even in the gangland murders of about 20 years ago, there was one shooter with one gun. Now, you look at the footage. A taxi driver was shot in Tunapuna area somewhere there. That's brutal. Seeing school children scampering in broad daylight. But you look at that footage and it's 3 men, each with a gun. Each with a gun. Does it look like these men are struggling to get guns? The 3,888 guns obviously isn't stopping them from getting any. If there's a ratio, that might be you're seizing 1 gun for every 20 that escapes. These guys aren't struggling to get guns. The boast of taking guns off the street doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense in our context. You're boasting about taking logs out of a forest fire. The fire is raging. That's not the thing you need to do. You're doing the wrong measure. Yes, that might have worked if it was that the country only had 10,000 guns and the whole country had 10,000 guns and no new guns were coming in. Okay, fine. Then you could go out there and seize all of the guns. What time and how often do you go live? I go live basically every weekday. If I don't go live, I say so on my Discord server. The link to that is in the TikTok profile. I go live every weekday around 9:15 p.m. Sometimes I start a little later, 9:15 to 9:30, there and thereabouts every weekday. Why Port Police and police don't want the random monthly lie detector tests? Are they hiding something? Chris 868, I think that's a very obvious answer. I think you know the answer to that. Widely it's known now these guys aren't going in pirogues and shipping in these guns anymore, you know. They don't need to do that. The guns are coming in through containers. They're coming in boxes, in barrels. And that's beside the illegal shipment and pirogues. Listen, if an entire Venezuelan woman and man and child could be smuggled into the country at an unending flow rate. You're getting the picture I'm saying? If you could pick up a whole human and sneak them into the country easily, how hard is a gun? A gun doesn't cry, a gun doesn't move, a gun can't drown, a gun doesn't wiggle, a gun doesn't get cold. You wrap that up in some crocker's bag and they speed across and throw it on the sand. If you could smuggle humans, guns are just very easy. And if we cannot send back human Venezuelans, and this isn't a hit at the Venezuelan migrants by any means, it's just an example to point out a reality. If we cannot send back human Venezuelans faster, if we cannot catch them faster than they are entering, what is to say we will be able to find the firearms faster than they are entering? That seems like a fool's errand. I say, you know what? Don't even bother using the police to go and digging up guns in the bush anyway. Leave those guns in the plastic bags wrapped up all over. Never mind those. Look for the containers and the barrels and the pirogues. Look for the criminals to stop the criminals actually committing crime with the weapons. But to make it seem like, you know, we're really taking guns off the road and making a dent out there, like, stop mama-guying the people. That doesn't add up. The Prime Minister also took issue with the number of firearm licenses that were issued to give people guns. He said the record shows countries with a proliferation of firearms have the most gun crimes in the world, and the best example is the United States. And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is a lie that the Prime Minister is telling. That's a pretty clear lie. The record shows countries with a proliferation of firearms have the most gun crimes in the world. That's not really true. If you're talking a proliferation as in just plenty guns in the country, well, yeah, obviously, in order to have gun crime, you need to actually have guns. But if you're talking gun laws, the countries with the strictest gun laws have the least crime is not a fact. That's not how it works. And even in the United States is not one block as it comes to gun laws. The United States, there are states where they have constitutional carry. You could have a gun just in your waist and walk around with it normal. And there are states where the gun laws are similar to Trinidad's gun laws and even more strict than that. And if you look at state by state, the states with the stricter gun laws generally have more gun crimes. The cities with the stricter gun laws generally have more gun crime. It doesn't work 1 + 1 = 2 like that. Many people, when they talk about gun laws being correlated with safety, they're not actually talking about the gun laws. You look at the countries that they're talking about northern European countries very often. And the reason those countries have low gun crime has nothing to do with the proliferation of guns. It has to do with the culture of the country. Some gang leaders, they're blind to a big container of guns, but rip apart my small Amazon package to see what's in it, Rahul says. Dalip Jairam says some gang leaders sacrifice his transporter with some old guns to make their partner-in-law look good. Matthew Camejo, think about this. How much cars do we import per month, and what is actually in those said cars when they leave the port at 11 in the night and no stop and search by the police? Totally unrelated, Tristan Ali says, but what are your thoughts on Andrew Tate? I have spoken on him before, but I don't mind saying it again. My thoughts on Andrew Tate is that, by and large, a lot of what he says isn't that controversial if you say it in a different way. He purposefully has said certain things in more provocative ways that he has paid the consequence. So in some interviews, he himself admits that. And he said that some of the things he said, he didn't say it expecting the millions of people in the audience that ended up seeing it. Some of that was just kind of talk for smaller audiences. And if he thought about it more at the moment, he may have said it less provocatively. But a lot of what he says isn't even that controversial. It isn't even that controversial. There's just lots of motive to control the conversation online. And by and large, women are more of the customers when it comes to basically everything. Women buy more consumer goods. Women are the customers more often. And because of that, when you're thinking about the customers being right, many social media networks would pander, if I were to use that word, to what many women say. And if you get enough women to be against what you're saying, that's a difficult battle to fight. And that's the place he ended up in. Tony the Ambassador, also those bigger countries are better at detecting gun imports. Yes, they are. But as the philosopher said in the movie, guns don't kill people. People kill people. There are states in the United States where nearly everyone has a gun and there isn't much crime. The people who are very pro-gun have a saying, an armed society is a polite society. And you get the implication there that if you have the inkling that every person you meet has a weapon that could end you, you kind of tread a little more carefully. You aren't something special for having a gun. And that's part of my problem with a lot of this. If it was that we were in a country where they were actually effective at stopping the criminals from having a gun, then okay. If the citizens don't have a gun, then fine. Nobody really cares. Nobody has the gun. But if it is the criminals still have the guns, and then you're saying by all means we must make sure it's very difficult for civilians to get guns, I don't understand what is the point you're trying to make here. And they regularly these days are talking about these firearms as if this is causing a problem in the country. 3,888 guns they took off the street. How many of those guns were legal firearms? I would like that number. And I'm sure if that was a high number, if the facts were that lots of legal firearms were being found in use in crimes, they would have said that number. The fact that they don't even mention that number, I find to be quite revealing. What evidence are they using to say that allowing more people in Trinidad to get their firearm licenses was increasing the crime. Like, those guns are registered. If someone with a firearm license uses their registered firearm, you would know. If you seize a registered firearm, you would know. So, what's the number on this? Udo says, I'm still not comfortable being in a society where the only armed persons are in or work for government. That's exact. We are in a society, and this is the scary thing. Nikhil says, what is your thoughts on these roads by just come back from the mechanic? I know that pain. I know that pain. But that's exactly my point. We are in a society here where the only armed people are the government and the criminals. Or, well, the law enforcement arm of the government and the criminals. That's the only people that are armed in the society. And we are right here in the middle. And we know, not saying all law enforcement, but we know here in Trinidad and Tobago, lots of our law enforcement are indeed corrupt. That's no secret. So to be trapped in a country with the only armed people being a law enforcement group where a significant portion are corrupt, and then the criminals, that's a tough place to be. That's a tough place to be. Where can I get a jersey like yours? Well, the Mindful t-shirts, as I said yesterday, the Mindful t-shirts have always been for sale. They are still for sale. Also, if you look up right there, somewhere there, according to where you are looking at this, you would see there are Mindful caps too. They are also for sale. Hit me up in my inbox to place an order for anyone you so choose. There are different colors in these also. Whichever size you would like, let me know and you can purchase one. They are for sale, yes. Hit me up in my inbox if you are interested. What is your opinion on the far left? Have they gone too far? Well, I think if you're the far left, that kind of already says you've gone too far. Nathan, good night. Midterms Tuesday. Yes, Speaker Pelosi. I think your party is in for a whooping in that midterm, Speaker Pelosi. It seems like you all are lining up for some licks out there. Yeah, if you're far left, yes, you've gone too far. You're far left. That's kind of the signal right there. On the cars and the mechanic, I saw that Imbert, I believe it was letting it be known that there's a new agency that was formed. Some, the PNM is good at forming new little state agencies. Some new little something they formed to go out there and pave the secondary roads. He told Faris to go to work. So Faris may be out there paving some of these roads. For some of you that are worried a bit about the state of the roads, well, there may be some hope inside. They're saying that, the PNM is saying that they handled our finances so skillfully that they have a little something extra in the kitty now, and they may be able to pave some roads with it. So hopefully, well, the reality is our local government elections are coming up some point in time. So the fact that they may be doing some paving is not really any surprise. Nisi says after he done pave his street that didn't need paving. Who is that he that did that, Mr. Embert? He paved his street? Politics, man. Politics. Such an interesting game politics is. Oh, by the way, last night in the live I was mentioning that there were rumors that Lady Spice, well, Spice is how she's going now, was in a coma. I saw today that they're saying her agent is saying that that's not true. She is fine. She went and she did her cosmetic surgery and she's not in a coma. I guess that's a good thing. Nathan, how's the little one doing? She is doing very well, growing quickly, wiggling all around the place, making noise every now and again. All the important things that little ones are supposed to be doing. All right, folks. Are there any further questions or comments? Or shall we call it a night right there? Any further questions or comments by anyone? Speaker Pelosi asks, yeah, what's your opinion on the attack on my husband? The attack on what's his name, Paul Pelosi. That's some suspicious stuff. That's some suspicious stuff. There are allegations that, the initial thing is that they're saying it's a random attack. One side is saying that it might be the Republicans, the GOP guys, because the guy's a bit of a kook, he's a bit of a conspiracy guy. But I mean, the guy has the rainbow flag on his homeless bus where he protests for nudist causes, and he's a illegal immigrant from Canada. So I mean, he's not directly lining up to that side. I think he's just a crazy person personally. I don't know. I mean, I know other people are saying that it might be that, they were having a little bit of a rendezvous and it went south. I don't know that either. It seems more like just a crazy person. Trump versus Biden, well, I don't know. Biden won the last time. I don't know if they do it again, what is going to happen. I have a feeling like if it goes again, Trump has a higher likelihood of winning the next time. Do you think Trinidad should put more effort into transitioning to electric vehicles or more renewable energy? I don't think we should put effort to any of that. I think we should allow the market forces to take care of those things. And my area of study was environmental. I consider myself an environmentalist. However, the problem with a lot of the climate change talk isn't the science, it's what people want to do about the science. So it's very similar with the COVID business. What happened during COVID is not just the problems with the science, it's how people interpreted the science and what they thought was the right thing to do based on the science. So for example, with that COVID, just by the way, in New York, their Supreme Court over there in New York recently ruled that all the people that were fired because of vaccine mandates, you have to rehire them and pay them the money that they missed. And the reason they had to do that, because now the evidence is showing that there was no proof that the vaccines decreased transmission. So people were talking about the science, etc., etc., etc. back then. It wasn't about the science. It was about the political decisions based on what they call the science. So similarly with the climate issues, I am worried about the political decisions based on the science. So yeah, don't force it. Allow the market to pull it forward. Udo says everyone wants to force electric vehicles with toxic unrecyclable batteries, and we don't have enough of the rare earth minerals, the rare earth elements that are needed for those batteries in the first place. They're talking about climate change and producing carbon. Do you know how much carbon is necessary to get the resources to produce those batteries? Do you know the child mines, the child labor in those mines they do to get some of those elements for those batteries? It's just not sustainable. We don't have enough for it. Electric cars need infrastructure, and that not too hot down here. And electric cars don't do anything for the climate if they are charged off of the same fossil fuel burning grid. Our grid that produces the electricity uses fossil fuels to produce the electricity. So your car is still running on the same fossil fuels. You're just adding another step in the process. Speaker Pelosi says if Biden don't run, who you think could replace him besides Kamala, Lal, Gavin, AOC, Beto? The Democrats over in the United States have a very difficult position. Biden obviously isn't too corpus mentos. Everything isn't firing on all fronts inside there. Kamala is not a very likable person. People don't really like her. Gavin Newsom also, he doesn't have popularity widely in the United States. AOC is far left. Good luck trying to win a national election with a young far left woman. Beto cannot win Texas, even though he has kept trying to do it over and over and over. He overestimates his own charisma. So good luck to the Democrats over there. Good night, Big JT. Rahul Udo says the world has too many powerful eco-chondriacs that fly private jets and talk too much and live on beachfront property. People telling you that in the next 10 years the water levels are going to rise to a level that we won't be able to survive anymore, and they're buying beachfront property and going to COP27, the climate change summit with a whole lot of private jets. Like, I don't buy that. And I find it just very ironic that many of the people that talk the most about those things have a lot of money invested in the technology that they would make money off of if we do move in that direction. Sorry, I don't agree fully with that. Porsche and other manufacturers are doing research into synthetic fuels. Think there's hope there? Yes, I do think there's hope there. I do think there are alternatives, and I do think we are going to change from the gas model. I just think that trying to push it from a political side isn't how that is done. You don't need to force something like that. The technology is going to lead that way. People are going to want that as time goes on. Electric cars sounds like good marketing to sell new cars. Huh? Passing through, good work. Thank you, Ravi Ramnen, the TV8 News. Speaker Pelosi says Republicans have so much good candidates. To be honest, I'm feeling bad for my party. Michelle Obama, save us, please. She might win, but I don't know if she'll go. I don't know if she'll win actually, because sometimes you could underestimate the importance of certain things, especially when you're talking about on a wide scale. Like, okay, the fact that she's black and that she's a woman might mean anything to a lot of people, but that might mean something to some people. And if it means something to enough people that they don't come out and vote for her, well, yeah. So many people are just skeptical of women candidates more. So that in and of itself could be a more difficult thing. But who knows? Nikhil says, on a lighter note, who you backing for World Cup next year? Listen, I'm a Brazil guy. You know, I'd like the GOAT to get a little something before he retires. So Argentina just for the GOAT, and Brazil otherwise than that. I am basic in that. I grew up in the 90s. In the 90s, if you grew up looking at football, I don't understand how you could have liked any other team other than Brazil. It's just the reality of it. Kamala had so much potential, she screwed up bad. I don't think Kamala ever had potential. That woman wasn't even winning in the internal election. She was losing her own home state. The known reputation is that she only got forward in her political role by being a consort for a specific senior official out there in California. And I mean, it's not even a secret. It's widely known news. The man himself announced that that was true. So yeah, I don't think she would have that appeal on a wider level. She's not a very likable person like that. Yeah, any further questions? That seems like it's it. Is that it? Is that all? You should watch House of Cards on Netflix. It's good. Yeah, I've seen House of Cards before. I've seen some of it. TV shows these days, I could only take so much, to be honest. And a lot of those Netflix TV shows, they start to just head down a really bleak path really quickly. And I mean, like, you could have whatever kind of person you want in your story, but at least let the storyline be good. The storylines are poor. The storylines seem like it's more about preaching something to you than telling you a good story. So yeah, but yeah, I've taken that. What do you think about that's a whole other thing there. Do you know, just there's a reputation that the Clintons, if you speak bad about them, you end up, you know, Jeffrey Epstein kind of business. There's also a reputation about that for Kevin Spacey, because many of the people who have accused him of improper things throughout time, and he has quite a few accusations of impropriety out there. Many of the people who accused him of things ended up, you know, on the bad side of the life and death line. After Money Heist, Netflix shows really went downhill for real. I didn't even take in the whole of Money Heist. I'm not that much of a TV bug. All right, folks, that's all for now, it seems, and I enjoy this. I really do. Thank you guys for tuning in. I will see you again for the next Mindful Live, which will be tomorrow evening at around 9:15 p.m. 9:15. So I will see you guys then. Until then, peace out. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. Good night, folks. Peace.